Hi, this is Simon Obstell and welcome to another tutorial for Apple Motion. And today, as my new ident implies, we're going to be taking a look at this technique for creating a nice organic reveal. And it's going to look something like these examples. So let's get started. So let's check up on our project settings, 1920, 1080, 24 frames a second, or whatever frame rate you want, frankly, and a duration of 4 seconds. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over and import from my assets. Let's bring in all of those elements like so. Let's move crystals to the back. We don't need to see that. So organic design, canvas, and then crystals in the group at the back there. Obviously, this organic design is basically just something I've created, and it's a PNG. So I'm imagining this is your artwork that you've brought in, and it's just white with alpha channel. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a clone of it. So right-click, make clone layer, and then I'm also going to duplicate that clone. Right-click, duplicate, and I'm going to turn off that original. The first thing I'm going to do is let's turn off that top clone so we can see what we're doing. Select this bottom clone, come to filters and border and stroke. The one thing we can do here is hide source because we just want the outline for this. So hide source, we've got just the outline. That's good. I want to set the position to inside. And for the color, I'm going to go with full white. And the width, let's go for 4. And then to get it looking nicer, we're going to come over and set its blend mode to overlay. And you see we've got this nice sort of faint watermark of our logo. Then I'm going to select the top clone. Let's turn that back on again. And let's just give it some nice color. So filter, stylize, and fill. And I'm going to pick this nice complementary yellow. So the trick will be to get this fill to fill in over the top of the outline. So just a fade looks really nasty. It's particularly nasty as you're going through these intermediate values. It just doesn't look good, I don't think. And it's also very dull. So we're going to do something much more interesting. I'm going to come down to this group that's got the crystals in it. It's like my sort of group that I'm hiding away behind the canvas. In actual fact, we can even turn it off. And I'm going to come over to the library and generators, and I'm going to look for clouds, and I'm going to bring it in there. You all know what the clouds looks like. It looks like that. And what we're going to do is to it, we're going to add filters, color, and threshold. Let's come over to the inspector. Now you can see what the threshold has done. It's turned all those soft grays into pretty much black and white with just a little bit of softness on the edges. And in actual fact, we don't even want any of that softness. We just want a nice hard edge to everything just like that, which we can achieve by setting that softness value to 0. So let's unsolo those clouds. So what I'm going to do is come back to my filled logo here, right click, add image mask. I'm going to set the source channel to luminance. And then I'm going to use this group that we've made, bring that in there. And you can see now how that is masking the fill. And if we come back to the threshold, we can animate the threshold value and the fill will fill in this kind of nice organic way. So that's kind of all right, but I don't really like the look of it too much. But I'm just going to quickly just set some keyframes for that. So parked on the first frame, set a keyframe there with the value at 1, and I'm going to come forward to, I think, of roughly 2.5 seconds, and set that value down to 0. So now it kind of just animates of its own accord, and I don't have to drag the slider. Let's just adjust those clouds now. I'm going to park in the middle here so you can see what I'm doing. So what I want them kind of long and stretched. So I'm going to set the horizontal scale to something like 200 and the vertical scale to something like 8. And now we've got this nice kind of streaky reveal. And that's kind of already a lot more interesting. But I actually wanted to have a bit of a kind of a swirl to it. So I'm going to come to filters and distortion, and I'm going to grab underwater. Now we don't want any speed for the underwater, but you can see immediately how that's created this really nice flowing fill. You know, we can adjust that refraction to taste. It just kind of bends it around more. I think that's pretty nice, just a little bit more refraction on there. So you'll notice that the animation pops a little bit at the end. And we need really to adjust the keyframes of this threshold. So I'm going to select the threshold and I'm going to open up the keyframe editor and I'm going to select the keyframes, right click and interpolation Bezier. And then I'm going to take this first Bezier handle here and then just drag it down so we've got something like this. And now it's kind of a little bit smoother towards the end, and that's going to work better. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it would be to use the canvas texture itself. So I'm going to copy this canvas texture into our background group. So that's Option drag it into there. And then I'm going to use this same threshold. So I'm going to Option drag that threshold onto the canvas. And now you can see, so we're parked halfway through, you can see we've got kind of that canvas texture, which now gradually reveals the logo like this. And I think one nice thing we could do in this case is to leave a little bit of the texture behind. So I'm going to come to the last keyframe for the threshold on the canvas there. And I'm going to set that value to 0.01, and it's just going to leave just a little bit of it behind, and I think that's much nicer. And then I'm also going to come to the first frame, and I'm going to set this initial threshold value to 0.6. Because of the nature of the canvas texture, we need to start with a different value like that, so we get a more continuous animation like this. But if we wanted a different effect again, we could use this crystals that we've brought in here. I'm going to just move that up to the top of the group. And again, I'm going to Option drag that threshold onto the crystals like this. And you'll see that that's a very different sort of effect. Really rather a nice one, I think, with a lot of visual interest. So I'm just going to turn off the canvas there. And I'll show you something quite interesting, which is that we could combine this crystals with the clouds animation underneath. So let's set the blend mode of that crystals layer to add. And now you'll see that we're getting that kind of those swirly lines in addition to that kind of crystals reveal as well. Now there's one thing we need to do. You'll probably notice that the edges have gone very sort of bright yellow. And that's because with this add operation, we're pushing the overall values above 100%. And we can fix that by selecting this group, coming to filters, color, and simply adding a levels. And what the levels does is it clamps everything at 100% or 1 if you prefer. And we don't actually have to do anything more with it. It's just a good limiter, as it were. So now you've kind of got those two combined, and that's quite nice. And we could even do the same with the canvas. So if we turn that canvas back on again and set that to add, and now we've got kind of all three happening at the same time. Pretty nice. You could adjust the relative strengths of those and whatever. So, you know, you can kind of use almost any type of source to do this sort of reveal. And as I say, you know, kind of compositing different types of texture will give you an even more interesting result. Anyway, that's the technique. I hope it's going to be useful to you. It's got lots of uses, I reckon. So thanks very much indeed for watching. See you again soon.